everyone. Today, we are excited to be joined by our CEO, who is going to start with really hitting home the message of how this is valuable to employers. And then Emily, who we'll introduce more formally later, and myself will talk to you about the how to share with employers. So, with no further ado, Jeffrey, take it away.
Thanks. Did that mean we had a bunch of previous ado?
A little bit, just a little bit of ado today.
No, it's great to be here today. I love this session and really love the work that our entire partnerships team does and the partnerships we have with so many of the amazing schools. One of the things I want to talk about today is just based upon conversations that I have and our team has with so many employers. What we're hearing from them and sort of let you behind the curtains a bit. So obviously a lot of schools are very familiar with micro internships and how they support the efforts of those schools, be it work integrated learning or with smaller employers that may not have internship programs or certain students where traditional summer internships may not work. But today I really want to share that behind the curtain view a bit more on how employers are actually using Parker Dewey to me. And what's most interesting is while we think about micro internships as really just small projects, employers are looking beyond those individual assessments or assignments to really leverage the platform as a key part of their recruiting effort, to build relationships with the students, to get insights on the student skills, and to really get the most of what they're already doing on campus, or to build the relationships with new schools. And in this environment, this is key. As I'm sure you're all hearing, companies of all sizes are sharing these insights. They're complaining about the volume of candidates resulting from the one-click job applications, but they're also complaining they're not getting enough attendees at their career fair booth or the events they're hosting. They're coming to you asking how to reach certain students, be it the clubs or certain graduation dates or certain skill sets, but then they're surprised when their email messages to those students aren't going through. So what we're going to share today is sort of some tried and true methods of how schools are collaborating with the employer partners. And these employers really are across the board. Again, in all cases, they're trying to support their needs and deepen the relationships they already have. Again, these employers can be well-known brands that certainly have no shortage of applications for certain roles, but still struggle with others. Or they're feeling a lot of uncertainty around this year's needs, or trying to look beyond the traditional feeder schools. Could also be those smaller companies or companies that are a little bit less well known to students, but they're still actively hiring. They may not have the resources of the big four, the consulting firms to be everywhere at every campus, or have the brand recognition so students are opening the emails. So again, we're going to let you in behind the curtain with 4 very specific ways employers are addressing this. So we're going to talk about how employers are using the Parker Dewey platform to make sure they're getting the most out of their campus visits before the event, during the event, and after the event, and what they're doing, even if they can't be on campus this year or haven't historically recruited from that school. But again, one thing I really want to drive home is in all of these cases, this aligns to what the employers are already doing. It's not adding work for them. So while we think it's super valuable for our college and university partners to understand this, really so you can respond to those employers when these questions are coming up. And one thing I want to highlight, especially with Emily and Danielle here, both having come from universities, is we know how busy you are. We know how much time you're spending trying to hit your goals. Fortunately, every one of these insights that we're going to share from the employers can be integrated into the messages and conversations you're already having with employers. And as Danielle and Emily will share afterwards, we'll share some very specific ways to do it. So let's jump in with the 4 examples. The first challenge that, again, I'm sure you're hearing, and feel free to comment in the chat if you're feeling this or if there's specific examples, is when employers are coming to you frustrated with the volume or traffic of attendees, whether it's at the career fair booth or the info session. And again, not only does this impact their outcomes, but they're also feeling pressures around budget and time, and making sure they're seeing value is really vital to making sure they continue to come back year after year after year. In this example, it's a company that used Parker Dewey to really drive interest by students beforehand. It was no longer about sending messages, please come to the booth to sort of hand over the resume or give your elevator pitch, or sitting and hearing the panel, which is kind of sort of like what students are saying they hear from a company's website anyway. But rather, this organization was using its existing communication to students, talking about projects that they were going to be offering exclusively to students who attended that session, who visited the booth. And this was done in all of the usual communications that employer was doing, but was also targeting very specific clubs and student populations. Now, here's where things also get interesting, is beyond using that kind of messaging to drive interest, they were also using the candidate intelligence platform on Parker Dewey to see which students were engaging before the visit, which ones were authentically interested, which students, great if they actually were being selected for projects, but which ones were even applying to projects up front. That provided that company with real insights to know which students were interested in the roles and to make sure those companies were engaging those students when they were on campus. So as a result, this company saw over a 3x increase in the career fair traffic. They shared with the career services team, their info session was packed. And one of the stats they also shared was over 80% of the students who were showing up to the events, including the career fair booth and the info session, weren't previously considering their organization. This was key. This was key. Again, it's the students that were otherwise getting missed, being able to see value in that. So again, if this one hits home, feel free to comment in the chat. I'll keep half an eye over on the screen where we have that. The second example is also very common. Again, the company shows up to the event, they get the resumes, the students use the QR code to sort of submit the email address and otherwise. And then when the company's sending the follow-up, it's crickets. Now, this is not surprising, and it's not specific to any one company. Mary Scott reports that over 54% of students report blocking recruiting emails. Now, if you look on the right, you can see that in this case, what the company was doing was sharing in those email follow-ups and at the career fair booth, here's opportunities to work on real projects. And again, on the right, what you're able to see is the company wasn't just seeing, did the student apply and show interest, but they were actually able to see the real skills of a student, teasing out those insights earlier in the process. So it's about keeping the students engaged after the event to drive the value, but also continuing to get insights on the skills. And again, one of the things that jumped out at me wasn't just the increase in email engagement or click-through, but over 90% offer the hire versus 78% industry average. So again, building that authentic relationship with the student. In the third example, this is, again, especially timely given the application avalanche that's resulted from the one-click job application process. I think it was NACE that reported almost 200% more applicants per hire this year versus 2021. But one of the things that's been very interesting is a lot of the employers are frustrated, not just with the amount of time it takes to flip through resumes, but also how many students weren't authentically interested in their company. They were having phone screens and finding out the students hadn't done research or truly understood what the role was. So what we're seeing companies doing is using the candidate intelligence platform to tease that out. As you can see from the far left, this organization was able to see that Jeff, or whoever the college student was, wasn't just one click applying to a project, but Jeff was actually applying to several different projects with that organization, not just at one time, but over his entire time at that university. They were able to see the students' answers to short questions, able to tease out, was Jeff really interested in my organization? This is key. We talk about making this low friction for the employers, easy to use, but I'll be honest, there's a little bit of friction for the students, but it's good friction. We want the students to spend the 3 minutes or 5 minutes answering that question because, again, it gives the employer more insights on if the student's authentically interested. What's also interesting about this is the work product the students turned in. In this company's example, They submitted or they selected two different students to do a micro internship tied to an HR role they had. First, it was a summer internship, then a full time role. But they had two students do these projects. One was an HR major with a 3.9 GPA. The other was, I think, a liberal arts student with a lower GPA. The example on the left, the one that says best practices for new hire onboarding in bold, was the 3.9 HR major. The company was able to quickly look at that work product and tease out that, gosh, maybe the attention to detail is not what we're looking at or looking for, the communication skills. The student on the right, they were able to quickly see, gosh, this student has what we're looking for. They can go and do the problem solving associated with figuring out an HR role, but they also communicate effectively and have attention to detail. Now, for you, this is obviously providing you insights you can better counsel and coach and support the students. But for an employer that's getting inundated with resumes, this is a great way to sort of determine which are the students most likely to convert, which are the ones most likely to be a better hire. So these employers are looking at 70% faster time to hire with lower costs and better retention. This isn't only about helping the employers, this also helps you and helps your students, better matching the right students to the right role. The last example is the budget cuts and uncertain hiring. Again, we're all hearing from employers, they're not sure what their needs are going to be this year. Their hiring numbers are down, not because they necessarily expect to have fewer interns, although in some cases they do. They're just not sure. They're not sure how many full-time hires. They're not sure what their needs are going to be because of the economic climate and otherwise. In addition, their campus recruiting budgets are getting cut. They're not able to go to as many schools. They're not able to do as many visits. In this example, this organization was facing a lot of the same challenges. They were trying to figure out, how do we continue to maintain the relationships we have with existing schools? They didn't want sort of the rehash of what happened during COVID, where those relationships they spent years building sort of disappeared because they weren't on campus for a year or two. So even those companies that have their recruiting budgets cut want to continue to maintain those relationships, but they also want to identify other schools that they could be working with in the future when some of the budgets unlock. So again, in that same way, this organization was using the candidate intelligence platform to do just that, to both tease out what schools could be effective feeders, to deepen the relationships with those existing schools, but also to have the data internally that they could share the metrics with the team, metrics to show the efficacy of their programs. One of the questions that always comes up, though, is how heavy of a lift is this? So when you're talking with employers, is it difficult? Is it going to require a bunch of time or effort? We always like to make sure our university partners know that we make it simple. We make it simple not just for the universities and colleges, but also for the employers. We're able to share projects and design projects specifically based on full-time roles or summer internships those companies have. We provide all of the support and training and back end. We handle all of the logistics. So for the employer partners, all we need to understand is give us a job description for an entry level role or summer internship. We handle the rest and ensure it's a smooth, high impact experience for students and employers. Danielle, let me kick it back to you.
So the key takeaway that we want you all to come away from Jeffrey's section is micro internships are a really, really valuable resource for you all to share with your employers because it's going to create those accessible opportunities for your students. It's going to allow your employers to reach that talent that they might otherwise be missing. It's going to allow them to make those hiring decisions that aren't going to immediately result in turnover. Basically, they're going to lead to a better recruiting experience for everyone. But there are some employers that may not be aware of Parker Dewey yet. Some that maybe have heard of us, but might have preconceived notions about it being just a project, or maybe they don't understand the full value of how this can be used as a recruiting tool. And there may be other employers who are interested in your students and are already using the Parker Dewey platform, but don't know that your students are on it. So they're not thinking to feature their projects to your students. So the ultimate takeaway here is to make sure that your students have consistent opportunities to be able to view and apply to. You all play a really vital role in sharing this information with your employers. So now that we've covered the what, the Parker Dewey micro internships are a really valuable recruiting tool. The next section, we're going to be talking about the how. Now that you know this, how do you share this information with your employers? So we have this broken up into a couple of different sections here. First, we're going to talk about the resources that we have available to you, especially if you're already a partner, to make sure that you have it handy, ready to go to share with your employers. Basically, those things that are just designed to make your life easier to help get the word out. We have my colleague Emily here today, who is going to introduce herself more formally when we get to that section about how you can invite Parker Dewey to connect with your employers and vice versa, how you can connect or encourage them to connect with us. We have some additional resources that we're going to cover and where you can find them. And then another great resource is always those folks you have right there on your campus, your faculty and alumni. So we're going to talk about some resources you have to help them help you engage employers so everyone in turn can help your students. So with that little preview of the rest of the session, those resources that you have to share micro internships as a recruiting tool, a lot of them become available to you when you become a Parker Dewey partner. And partnership has a no-cost option. It is genuinely free. And one of those benefits of Parker Dewey partnership is an employer-focused landing page. Because we know that you all have a lot on your mind. I'm sure the information that Jeffrey shared was helpful, but with everything else on your plate, with career fairs and info sessions and logistics of the day-to-day of helping your students and employers, you may not always have it directly at the forefront of your mind. And these landing pages are designed to be easy to share so you can send it to the employers and they can understand from the page how this benefits them as a recruiting tool. So I want to give you a quick tour of an example of one of these pages and what you'll find on it. It highlights for employers how they can just test drive top talent risk-free, how things are easy, what they can expect when they create a recruiting account on Parker Dewey, how things work, and it even gives them examples of a few templates that they could post for students. Now, to be clear, they are not limited to these templates. They're welcome to post a custom project. Really anything as long as it's professional and has a specific deliverable. But we find that having a few examples can just be helpful as they're getting the wheels turning. Now, as Jeffrey mentioned earlier, we are also always happy to connect with your employers. If they want to send us a job description, we have years of experience where we can look at that description and turn around specific micro internship recommendations that are going to help them assess for the skills needed for that role. So if you have questions, if you want to have your employers connect, if you want to have them discuss specific roles they're hiring for and how micro internships can help, you can also always encourage them to fill out the form at the bottom of that employer-facing page. So how do you get this page out there? Where should it be shared? We give you really easy to use introductory language. This is something that's also linked to in our partner checklist, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, that highlights this is a way that employers can build their talent pipeline. So you don't have to worry about, well, how should I introduce this? What should I say? What's the proper wording? We have already figured that out for you, and we've tested it to see that this recruiting message is really what's going to drive a meaningful number of opportunities for your students. Now, if any recruiters are ever reaching out to you, I forgot to preface, I used to work in career services myself before I joined the Parker Dewey team. And I know sometimes employers would reach out and they would ask, how can I engage your students? What are some ways in addition to the career fair or the info sessions that your students are really responding to? The language that we have in the checklist and your employer-facing page should be shared there too. Now, if you're like me, you probably have kind of a canned email response that you can adjust based on their specific needs. So make sure that language is in that email so whenever you are responding to a recruiter that's interested, you have it ready to share. We also have some presentations that make it easy for you to share that link. So if you are ever doing a recruiting summit or anything along those lines, maybe you're doing an employer appreciation breakfast, really anything where you are sharing micro internships or recruiting opportunities in general with employers, we have this really easy to update template, just a single slide that you can easily pop into that presentation. And you can adjust this URL at the bottom to go to your specific employer-facing page. So this slide is going to explain some of those things that Jeffrey covered. Why Parker Dewey? Because they're getting real insights. They're getting proven return on investment. It's faster, it's more inclusive, it's strategic. What employer wouldn't be interested in that? And it gives them just a brief highlight about micro internships, just enough for them to get to that page and realize how this is going to really benefit them. Ultimately, the idea is that that page that's targeted toward employers should be shared anywhere that you are sharing employer-facing resources. Again, we give you a lot of templates and ways to introduce it in those partner checklists. I know I've made reference to those checklists a couple of times. If you are a Parker Dewey partner, not only do you receive the checklist, but you'll get regular reminders about these contents as well. Now, for some of you who are already Parker Dewey partners, maybe it's been a minute since you've been able to re-engage, your URL likely changed in May 2025. So if you already had a page that was set up before then, I would just double check when you click on your link, it should have redirected to the new one. But if you are sharing this Parker Dewey link anywhere else, please make sure that you are using the updated URL, and please do not hesitate to connect with our team if you have any questions about those updates. Another great resource that we encourage you to make sure you have on hand is a flyer that you can easily share with employers. This is really great to be able to hand over if you are having an employer visit. Maybe you're on their turf, maybe they're visiting you on campus, maybe they came for the career fair, maybe they're doing an on-campus info session. But anytime when you're engaging employers in person, if you're sharing any paper resources, this flyer can be a great one to put out there. This really breaks down for your employers, again, a lot of that content that Jeffrey was highlighting earlier. I'll make it just a little bit larger so we can look at it here. But what he was highlighting about how this can be incorporated into your employer's recruiting strategy, really at any stage of the year, it's broken down really easily in this flyer. Whether it's before visiting campus to generate interest, during the events like the career fairs, as a meaningful next step after the career fair. I know Jeffrey already highlighted it, but want to reiterate, this is something that I used to hear a lot in career services from the student side of things. And I'm sure you all hear this too. They'd go to the career fair, and if that employer didn't have an opportunity available, students were coming to me going, well, why were they here? I want an opportunity. What was the point of spending time with them? Now, we know that that employer may have opportunities coming up in the future, and it was still well worth that student's time to connect. But from the student's perspective, they don't know what they're supposed to do next. Now, if the employer has a micro internship, something that they can encourage that student to apply to right away, something that can act as a feeder for the traditional internship once it's ready, that is going to make that career fair attendance much more valuable. So those are just a few of the insights that this flyer makes it really easy for you to share with your employers. And we also have a number of success stories that we encourage you to share with your employers as well. It's the same across a lot of things. People are open to hearing about something new, but they often want to hear about how other folks have done it first. What were the outcomes? What were the successes? So everyone will receive these slides after the presentation, and at that button, you are going to see a lot of success stories about how employers have used Parker Dewey micro internships to address a variety of pain points. So not only are you going to see those case studies that Jeffrey had before, but you're also going to be able to view, do any one of these stories or industries really speak to the particular challenges my employers are facing? And if the answer is yes, we encourage you to share these success stories widely. Now, another great option to make it easier for you to know what your employers are doing and consequently follow up and encourage use of Parker Dewey is to consider upgrading to Parker Dewey Plus. We're really excited to be able to share this option. It just became available in the summer of 2024, so still relatively new. But this is going to allow schools to see all of your Parker Dewey data on demand. So that's not only going to include your student-facing data, which students are creating accounts, are they applying, are they getting selected, but it's also going to include the details for the micro internships that have selected your students and employer engagement data. So if a company creates an account from your employer-facing page, even if they haven't posted a micro internship yet, your institution is going to be aware of that. So you can follow up, ask what they were trying to solve by creating an account, help them to that next step. Or, as we're going to discuss here in a minute, introduce Emily to help them to that next step. If you are busy and have a lot on your plate, that is what she's here for. You are also going to be able to see a history in Parker Dewey Plus of any projects that have ever been specifically posted for your institution. Now, it could have been that the project was exclusively available to your school, or maybe it was exclusively available to a few schools, including yours. But you are going to have a history of those employers that have been trying to engage your students in this way. So if it was a while ago, you haven't seen them post something new since, you can follow up, encourage them to post new projects. If they posted it, but maybe you don't see one of your students was selected, you know they had that interest, follow up, see what their experience was like. Make sure the next time they post an opportunity, you are able and ready to share it with your students to make sure that they are the ones getting selected. There are also some really nice benefits for your student engagement team as well. Parker Dewey Plus, you get to see student accounts. You also get access to a really easy to use impact report. There's some nice aggregate demographic data, so you could see which students are getting selected. Something we are very proud of at Parker Dewey is the fact that over 80% of the students who are selected come from historically underrepresented populations in the workplace. So this is a really great way if employers are coming to you saying, I want to reach diverse talent, or I want to reach talent that maybe doesn't have the time to come to my career fair or my info session. The first generation students, the non-traditional students, the student athletes. This allows you to be able to show the data to those employers and say, if you are trying to reach this talent, Parker Dewey micro internships are a great way to do it. Another nice option to really get things turning, Jeffrey often refers to them as flywheels to really get things moving, is to consider a Parker Dewey program. So, a Parker Dewey program is going to involve, usually from a grant or a donation of some sort, you, the partner institution, funding opportunities that are exclusively available to your students. So, if you have employers that have maybe expressed interest but haven't taken that first step, maybe they're just hesitant, or maybe budgets are extremely tight right now, but if they see success, it's something they can make a case for in the future. Since the institution, the partner, is the one funding the opportunities, all the details and decisions are up to you. So you could decide you only want this to be available to local employers or employers in a specific industry, maybe only employers that employ your alumni. Do you want it to be available to all your students, the resulting projects? Do you want them to be available to all your students, a specific segment of your student population? Do you want the projects to be focused on a specific topic or anything that employers might have a need for? These micro internship programs are extremely customizable, and we could spend a whole hour going over the examples and case studies, and we do on a regular basis. Our next session of that program is going to be on March 18th. So if you are interested in potentially creating opportunities that are exclusively available for your students, I put that webinar link in the chat. Please also don't feel like you have to wait for that webinar to have that conversation. We are always happy to connect one-on-one whenever you are interested in discussing a program option. So next up, Emily is going to introduce herself and talk to you about how you can invite Parker Dewey to connect with us and take some of that off of your plate.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm Emily Kravitz. I'm one of the newest members to the Parker Dewey team. My role is employer engagement. I am here to support all of your needs as it relates to getting employers started and kind of helping to strategize with your employers to make sure that they're best able to move forward. We want to remind, we've said this to you a lot today, but we also want to remind your employers our process is really easy. They could post a project literally today and get started right away. So I was you once, so I know what you all go through. I spent almost 20 years in career services, working primarily with employers. And so I understand that you are all tasked with not only connecting with new employers and getting them acclimated to campus, but also providing solutions to those long-standing employers already active on campus who are looking for new and different ways to stand out. And so my last institution used Parker Dewey, but now that I'm here, I can think of so many more ways that that our employers could have engaged with us that I only wish that I knew back then. And so again, I was brought on here to specifically support your employer needs. If you have employers who are interested in posting a micro internship, you can always feel free to share my contact information. I believe we will share that a little bit later in the presentation, but I'm just at emily@parkerdewey.com, so very easy to find me. I'm happy to meet with them one-on-one to answer questions, get them started. And if you as a partner introduces an employer to us, we want to make sure it's easy for them to engage students from your specific institution. Danielle's going to help me advance the slides. Thank you. Another way you can use me is I'm very happy to speak at some of your upcoming employer events. I remember I used to run an employer advisory board myself, and you're always looking for topics, something new that you want to share with employers. And so I'm happy to pop in virtually for just a few minutes. I can work with you to customize something that works for your messaging. Whatever you need, I'm here to support that. Any other employer events you have, like an employer, we used to do a thank you breakfast every year, or just things like that, or different industry days, or if you have different industry boards and you feel like they could use a little bit more support, or that Parker Dewey may be of interest for them for getting started with micro internships. Again, I'm happy to come in and just come through on Zoom for just a couple of minutes. Chambers of Commerce, as well as workforce development meetings, are another opportunity for me to kind of work with you to engage those contacts. Just earlier this week, actually, I made a presentation to a local Chamber of Commerce, and we had lots of different questions from more local employers who had just started connecting with the university, but really hadn't started with like formal campus recruiting efforts yet. And so this was a great time for them to introduce micro internships as a way to kind of cross things off their list. So that's a great opportunity as well. And then as well as I also have been connecting a lot with workforce development groups, because they have their eye on the pulse of what's happening in your local community, and they're able to connect with a lot of employers and send them your way. So if you have established relationships already with some of your local workforce development groups, feel free to let them know about Parker Dewey, or just let them know about me. Also, entrepreneurship and small business centers. Danielle previously mentioned this option to get a program started at your institution. And so one that's coming right to mind right now is another institution that's using projects for some of their small business owners in one of the centers that they have on campus, and giving those students exclusive access to get some opportunities there. I'm seeing entrepreneurship centers pop up all over campus, as well as in local communities. It makes sense because these entrepreneurs can have access to a great student population locally. And so if there's an opportunity, if you're working with faculty that are starting to get involved with entrepreneurship groups or local small business connections, again, I'm happy to connect with any of those employers, and feel free to send them our way. And then this is still a few other opportunities for different formal webinars that we can schedule and work with you. And so there's all sorts of things there, and I will show you in a little bit more detail in the next slide. Okay, first of all, we can schedule a webinar specifically and exclusively for your institution. So we can work with you to talk for about 30 minutes or so, and then stay around and answer individual questions your employers may have. And we'll make it very specific to your institution. So we do all the hard work. We prepare the presentation deck. We create the registration slide for you. We even customize any of the flyers or other promotional materials. All that we ask of you is to work with us to pick a date and time, and then commit to sharing the invitation with employers. And Danielle is really great at giving you a schedule of when you should send out the invitation and the reminders and all that. We do find that webinars for your employers are best when you have an invite list of at least 1,000 contacts, because that kind of helps yield the best results for participation.
One other note about the invite list for those webinars is, as Jeffrey was highlighting earlier, there are a lot of ways that you can use Parker Dewey micro internships, but the most effective way for your students is going to be inviting those larger employers that have consistent recruiting goals. Because those goals, even if they don't have the hiring needs at this moment, they know they're going to have a pipeline. So those larger employers have that drive to post more opportunities for your students. And at the end of the day, that's our goal, to help you create more opportunities for your students, but you're going to best help us help you to do that when you're inviting those larger employers that have consistent recruiting goals.
Thanks, Danielle. And just like today's webinar, if you have an employer that's like, yeah, that sounds interesting, but I'm traveling, or I'm going to be, at another school that day, we will share all the slides as well as the recording with anybody that registers. So if they're unable to attend virtually on time, they'll still get the information. So it's a really great resource. I'm also, again, I think I've said this before, but I can't stress it enough. Don't feel free to use me, please. I'm very happy to meet one-on-one with any of your employers, just discuss their individual needs, talk about their hurt points, and come up with some great use cases for how micro internships can be very relevant. That one-on-one conversation can be very helpful because you all work with so many different types of industries. Sometimes you're working with the department lead, sometimes you're working with campus recruiting, and sometimes it helps to just give them a human to connect with to help them get going. Another thing, we host monthly webinars on certain topics. And so this one is going to be specifically open to all employers. And so they'll get a chance to learn how these micro internships work and just hear it directly from us, Jeffrey, myself, Danielle. And you'll notice that the next one is coming up on December 11th. And so in all these slides, I'm not opening every single link, but Danielle's doing a great job of showing you a couple of examples of when everything's coming up. And as you get the recording, you can kind of take a look here. But this is great. Again, if you have an employer that's like, okay, I really want to learn more about Parker Dewey, but you're not ready to host one of those custom webinars yet, or they don't want to wait another month to whenever yours is happening, we do these often enough that an employer can easily pop in and get their questions answered. And then also I wanted to mention too, that after every one of these employer webinars, whether it's a custom webinar for your institution or just sort of the open to all webinar, I will follow up with anybody that registered so that, again, they have access to my information and I can help walk them through the process from there.
And we also want to highlight for your employers, yes, this is intended for them. They are the audience. But if you would like to hear the full half hour, this is how we're demonstrating the value to employers. Very similar to what Jeffrey shared at the beginning, but just a little bit more in depth into the variety of ways this can really help employers in their recruiting goals. Please don't hesitate to attend these yourself. We want to make sure that you feel confident and equipped to share. So that was the goal at the beginning of this. But if you want more detail, don't hesitate to join us at these too.
And then we also have what we call state of recruiting webinars that we host on a regular basis. And the nice thing about these webinars is that the topic rotates and changes. And so most recently, we focused on retaining and attracting talent regardless of location. So this was good for those employers that are maybe struggling to find candidates right now. But there could be a great population of students that maybe where your institution is located is their hometown, but perhaps are attending campus or college out of town but do intend to return back. So we try to find different timely topics. Our Jeffrey, who you met earlier, often presents these webinars, and they're another great resource for your employers. But keep an eye out for the next one coming up with the topic. Okay, I will pass this back over to Danielle to wrap us up.
So, on the topic of keeping an eye out for things, we have a lot of regularly scheduled resources, reminders, and content that we are sending your way. So, we want to make sure we're covering where you should be keeping an eye out and where you can find these resources, even if you are not seeing them in your inbox at any given moment. So, one of these pieces that you will make sure you receive if you are a Parker Dewey partner point of contact. Every month, we are going to send out timely, really easy to share content. So this is going to include content to share with your students, but also timely content to share with your employers. So reminders about those state of campus recruiting events or other resources that are just going to be really beneficial. So to give you an idea of the type of content you might see in your inbox, our November content, we were highlighting a opportunity for folks to learn more about how they can transform their early career recruitment with micro internships. Makes it really easy for you to share this out and post about it on LinkedIn. We also have, again, those monthly student newsletters, but we send these out every month. So you can see in October, the timely content at that time was a little different. That's when we were focusing on the regardless of location. We were hearing from our partners and their employers that this was a hot topic and something folks wanted to talk about. So it makes it really easy for you to see and share that content. Again, you will have this directly to your inbox if you're a Parker Dewey point of contact. But we also have our Greater Marketing Toolkit where you can see that content there too at any time. I've got some more content in this webinar about the Marketing Toolkit, so I'll make sure I highlight where that is when we get to that section. Another option to consider in terms of making sure this is incorporated into your regular communication to employers is maybe incorporating some Parker Dewey micro internships into your partnership or sponsorship packages. I know when I was in career services, we used to have different tiers for our career fairs, and the folks at the gold tier had a lot more included in their package. In a lot of cases, it was putting their logo in a lot more places, and while that does help with brand recognition, it doesn't necessarily help students really understand what that employer does or what type of opportunities they're going to be offering at their table. So, incorporating one or two micro internships into that career fair sponsorship or partnership package can really help that employer make a more positive and meaningful impact when they do come to your career fair or other campus events. For example, they could select one or two student ambassador micro interns before the career fair to maybe talk in their classes to say, hey, did you know who this company is? Did you know that they hire for these types of roles? This is why you should join this company or visit that company's table at the career fair. So we have an example of just one school who is doing this. We've got Harvey Mudd's employer partnership program, and they have different partnership levels. In their platinum, it includes two micro internship projects. So, as part of the employer's platinum partnership, they are already guaranteed that they are going to have a meaningful connection with at least two Harvey Mudd students. It's already incorporated into the cost. And a nice thing for you all as the schools is that guarantee of meaningful connection is also offering them an additional incentive to upgrade to those a little bit more expensive but impactful packages. So you can see, for example, the gold. One micro internship is included, and we still love folks that come to our career fairs at the different levels, but just encouraging them to take that next step with that guaranteed engagement included. And this can be especially beneficial for companies who maybe aren't familiar with Parker Dewey micro internships yet. Of course, they can schedule or not schedule, but post a project outside of that platinum or gold level and do it independently. But some of those companies that may not otherwise be familiar, this is a great way to bring them in and help them build that awareness. Now, on that topic of career fairs, Jeffrey already mentioned ways folks are using micro internships really intentionally to build that value. If that piqued your interest and you want to see more examples or a little bit more in the way of how to, just doing a quick highlight of this resource that again you will receive in the slides afterwards. If you are interested in seeing more employers do this, we do have language linked here too that we encourage you to share with your employers. Slide this over to them if they're saying, I don't know if I saw enough value at the career fair last year. I'm not sure if I can fit it into our budget this year. I just need to be able to demonstrate the impact more. If anybody's having those conversations, share this with them. Highlight, well, this is a strategy for you to make coming to our career fair more impactful. Coming from career services, we know how important these fairs are to your budgets. We know that if there's anything you can do to encourage employers to come, it's valuable not only to engage the students who come to the fair, but also to make it possible for you to do some of the other things that your team is doing for students throughout the year. So use this as a resource to help drive more of that engagement. And then for really easy to share content and again, timely content, we also have some Parker Dewey LinkedIn pages. We have two of them. One is focused on employer facing content, and that is our main page. So you are going to find posts on this page that, again, really easy to share and usually really timely. So it helps you to be part of that conversation with your employers live. So we just did a repost of that Supercharge Your Career Fair because employers are making those decisions, in February and March. Which career fairs are we going to go to? So highlight that this is a way that they can make attendance at yours more impactful. If you've been talking to employers who have been telling you, we've got great opportunities, but we're not seeing students from your institution apply in the way we'd like to, share this content about what some students are saying about why they're not applying or what the barriers are, and highlight, hey, when you're using micro internships, a lot of these barriers are easily overcome. So if you are not already following that page, encourage you to take a look at this button afterwards and give it a follow so it makes it really easy for you to share that content. Now, if you are in a role that is not only employer facing, but also student facing, hello, my small schools, where you are expected to do everything, we also have a page that is focused on student engagement. You will be able to see testimonials from micro interns, our student newsletter content. When projects are posted that are hiring a high volume of candidates, sometimes we'll do featured micro internships. So I would recommend if you have any student-facing responsibilities to give that a follow as well. And as promised, our Greater Marketing Toolkit. If you are looking for something specific, there is a good chance that you'll find it in that marketing toolkit. You can change based on the audience, you can change based on the type of content you're trying to reach. So it just makes things really easy to help get that word out there. And then our final recommendation that we haven't spent too much time on yet, but is always a really good idea. Involve your faculty and your alumni. Faculty not only have that direct connection to your students during classes, but they often have some great industry contacts that maybe don't have the budget or bandwidth yet to do traditional internships, but could certainly benefit from engaging your students in these short-term paid professional projects. So again, our whole goal is to make things easy. So we have an email template already set up for you. This is going to allow you to make faculty and staff aware of what these projects are. It's going to give them really easy to use resources so they can share it with their industry partners and professional contacts. And it's going to give them really easy to incorporate into class resources so they can add this, into their syllabus or into a class presentation when they're talking about building professional experience. Another great resource, not to be ignored, is going to be your alumni. They often have great projects and they're looking specifically to engage current students. So Parker Dewey not only gives them the opportunity to get help getting something done, but they're getting the warm and fuzzies from engaging your current students in a way that is meaningful and something that's going to help those students' careers. When I was at my previous institution, I was tasked with building an alumni student engagement platform, getting folks on the platform and helping them make those professional connections. And we realized pretty quickly there are only so many conversations you can have about that old residence hall or the dining hall food before things like some of the dining hall food start to get stale. So if you are encouraging those alumni to post projects, that gives them renewed fodder to discuss. What is this project? How does this incorporate into your work? What kind of opportunities can I look for as a student who or a recent graduate that would help me build toward this career you're working in? So those projects are just a really great way to spearhead some of those initiatives too. So with that, I see that some of you have already noticed, about a third of you, but we do have a final poll where we've highlighted some of these options that we encourage folks to do to engage their employers. So as we are wrapping up, if you have interest in any of those things, please let us know in the poll. We will be sure to send you a customized follow-up based on your response. But if you're thinking, man, this was a lot of content, how am I supposed to remember all of this? A reminder too that you will be getting the slides afterwards, and the last slide is going to have this kind of playbook for sharing this out with your employers. So it's got all those reminders of what you need to bookmark, have printed out so you can easily share. It's got reminders about those events that we have consistently. It's got links to that timely content. So all of these you can open up in a new tab and it's going to give you whatever that reminder is. So if you're going to save one thing from this presentation, I would say save this playbook at the end and make an intentional plan to do the things that you see on this slide. And with that, folks, just want to say again, if you haven't filled out the poll, we would love for you to do that. But we also so sincerely appreciate you all taking the time to connect with us today. It is always a pleasure. Our goal is to create more opportunities for your students, and we really love collaborating with all of you to make that happen. And again, just really recognizing the vital role you all play in creating these accessible, professional, paid opportunities for your students.